Please welcome Dr. Bruce Cornett.
Good evening. Today I have a presentation for you which I hope will thrill you because it represented 11 years of my study in the field, and I documented with cameras and video over 137 close encounters, which were many times seen by multiple witnesses. So getting this started, boy, listen to that weird sound. What I encountered in the field were craft that defied conventional physics and aerodynamics. I also documented them coming out of the ground and going into the ground.
That's a very important point that he made about going into and coming out of the ground, and I'll get to that in just a minute, but I want to apologize for the video that I put up a while back about this clown right here. He's the one that released a drone strike video on President Trump, and it really angered me, so I made a video, and I shouldn't have, but if you saw it and you were offended, I don't blame you. All I can do is apologize, and some of the people that saw it probably won't ever watch this channel again, but what can you do? So anyway, let's move along to something a little bit more relevant here than this guy. And that's this here, that this guy talks about in this video that I started off this video with. He talks about plasma lights. And a lot of my photographs and my videos are exactly this. I'll leave a link to this video that he did down in the description area. And believe me, it is well worth watching.
On another night, I captured this brilliant plasma light doing a U-turn. And if you can see in the lower part of the image, a series of dots and lines representing a conventional airplane flying nearby for comparison. If you look at the negative enlarged in the upper left, you'll see that there are all of these little strobes around the central plasma light, which was bumbling along and not flying in a straight line. So why was this so important? Why was all of this activity taking place in this one area? And I pondered on this quite a bit. And the one thing I began realizing is that many of the older Native Americans, the Lenape Indians that lived in the valley hundreds of years ago, were seeing the same lights that we were seeing today. Now, how do I know that these lights were being seen hundreds of years earlier? When we flew over the top of that hot spot with a helicopter in 1994, I got a shock. Here you can see an image taken from the helicopter. You can see the Dogleg Bend in West Searsville Road, where we typically went and set up our cameras and watched for things happening to the east. Well, right over the center of the hot spot, there is this Indian mound. You see it enlarged on the left with a vague hexagonal shape to it and an ellipse. It even has a water moat around it. And off to the back to the west, over here, we see a permanent crop circle with some trees growing up in the center. Now, this was very peculiar. So if the Native Americans were seeing these lights come down into the ground in this valley, they might have thought that they were spirits, earth spirits or whatever, and wanted to pray to them, worship them, etc. And Dr. Susan Martinez, who wrote the book, The Lost History of the Little People, she looked at mounds all across the United States, and she pointed out that many of them were originally designed for sweat lodges. In this particular case, her diagram shows that their typical outline and the layout of a sweat lodge was a large circle which had a dome on top of it, and then off to the right or the east was a mound called an unque, in which they built a fire where they heated up the stones and then carried them into the sweat lodge and put water on them to create the sauna type conditions there.
So in this area, there's an Air Force base, but it's about 20 miles away. And a lot of people that watch my videos assume that a lot of the videos that I have and photographs are coming from that base. And they may or may not be, but I think some of them are coming probably much more locally out of the ground, like that guy's talking about there. Because about a mile and a half away is a very large Indian mound. And if there is any truth to what he's talking about there, and I believe that there probably is, that's where a lot of this stuff may be coming from, because I've seen them coming out of and going down into the ground. And it kind of reminds me of that video I saw when I was a kid that really freaked me out, Invaders from Mars, where the kid goes to sleep and has a dream about a UFO going into the ground and abducting his parents and everybody in town. And then he wakes up and goes, "Oh, great, it was just a dream." And he goes over the window and sees a UFO going into the ground, just exactly like he did in the dream. It was a pretty neat video or movie. Back then they called them. But anyway, back to the main thing here. This is a conventional aircraft that I put through a filter. And what I want you to notice here is the core of these landing lights right here. You see how it's completely black. In other words, it overwhelms the light meter in the camera, and it goes to the negative, okay? But what you see on the outside here is this real gnarly looking effect that the lights give, but none of it is on the inside. And this is very typical of an incandescent lamp, like as in a strobe, landing lights on an aircraft. But when these things that I'm photographing, you put those through a filter, there's the plane. These things here, this is from the last video or so that I put up. That's not a conventional airplane. I could see it plain as day without any cameras at all, and that's what it looked like. That's the color video of it. But it's not a conventional aircraft. I think it's more like these plasma lights that he's talking about. And I put this video through that filter, and then you can see the core of these lights here. There is anomalies on the inside, not just the outside. And you can see all three of these are different intensities. But that's a dead giveaway that these are not conventional aircraft that I'm photographing out here. And this is a way that I test them, is to put it through that filter. You can see the inside. It's just really active with energy. So they're a plasma light. They're not a conventional aircraft. Now, the same night that I just filmed that one that was 3 lights going off to the left, 10 minutes earlier, I filmed this. And I just assumed that it was an airplane, but I thought, well, I'm going to photograph it anyway. I mean, I could see it plain as day. That really bright light there is a red light. And I just thought, well, it's a close aircraft, but I couldn't hear anything. So that's why I started filming it. And it goes off to the right. Now let me show you this when I put it through a filter. I'll show you the color video of it first, and then I'll put it through some filters. Now, this is a color video of it. I could see it plain as day. I just assumed it was an airplane. Well, when I put it through a filter, you can see it's getting all kinds of gnarly right there on the inside. That's not a conventional light on an aircraft. It's something else entirely different. So I'm not exactly sure what these are, but I have to agree with that guy in that video that these are some kind of a plasma lights, and they're entirely different than anything else. And like I said, I've seen them going in and out of the ground myself. So I would really encourage you to watch that guy's video all the way through. It's really interesting. And take care out there. Thanks for having a look, and hope we get to do this again sometime. Thanks again.